Now, if there's one thing that I really love about George Lucas is that he eventually speaks his mind and really reveals his honest opinions on specific things related to Star Wars, Indiana Jones, or flawed visions by Disney, specifically with the Star Wars universe, and how that really kind of creates a contrast between what George loves and what he does not like. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. And let's get right into the subject. Now, we know that George Lucas is in a very tough spot right now. We know that he was practically forced to attend the Indy 5 world premiere in Hollywood. We talked about this, about what happened behind closed doors. Since he is on the payroll for helping out Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni with Mando 4 and the Ahsoka series and more, they practically twisted his arm to make an appearance at the Indy 5 premiere to kind of give it a better image, because he is one of the big creators himself alongside Steven Spielberg. So, interestingly enough, he didn't really seem enthusiastic there. He didn't crack a smile. He didn't really even laugh, for that matter, at the Indy 5 world premiere, and that really was a telltale sign that he just was miserable. He didn't like the outcome of this movie, and well, we got an even bigger confirmation on all of that thanks to Steven Spielberg and what he was able to talk about George Lucas and more related to Indiana Jones, the Dial of Destiny. This, of course, concerns some of the skepticism, of course, among the fans, and a lot of harsh decisions that they had to make. Now, with that being said, with Indy 5 going through a series of bad reviews, even by Hollywood critics, currently one of the big developments is revolving around Steven Spielberg. Now, recently Spielberg had to say some pretty revealing things about Indy 5 by stating the following to the community. He went on to reveal something big about George Lucas. Well, when I was sitting down with him, since I am executive producing this film, we went on to discuss the ending and some of the character choices that we had made. The first thing Lucas told me about this movie was that there was nothing really new and that Indy was too old. I remember Lucas's first words were actually, "Old is one thing, but elderly is another." And to each his own, I guess, but I felt Ford's portrayal in this thing was amazing, and he really knocked it out of the park. So we started discussing the ending with each other because I figured, let me get George Lucas's blessing on this thing. And well, I didn't really get his blessing at my surprise per se, because we were set to do multiple endings that we were undecided with, and George enjoyed two of them that we ended up not using that honored some of the fan favorite characters. He came to me and said that the ending was missing the magic and something special about Indiana. The thrill was not there. And so, again, I love George and this franchise. It wouldn't have been possible without him. But he didn't really agree with many of our approaches to this film that made it harder on us without his blessing, so we went with the safe route. Now, let me pause here quick about what Spielberg is putting out there. Now, I don't know if you guys knew this, but we know that everything related to Indy 5, they made a lot of decisions that went against George Lucas. Now, we talked about how there were a total of 6 endings that were filmed or partially filmed or in the development stage, and many of them, believe it or not, had a lot to do with honoring the legacy, honoring the fan favorite characters like Ke Huy Quan's Shorty aka Short Round, and others out there to be implemented into the actual ending of Indiana Jones 5, such as Henry Jones, his father. We talked about this, of how he was going to be a vision inside of a biplane-like aircraft, sitting alongside his son, flying off into the sunset. That too was scrapped. So it was an endless, vicious cycle for George Lucas and Steven Spielberg disagreeing with each other on different visions of Indy 5, and it wasn't really for the best. So Spielberg is being very honest about George Lucas's words, his first thoughts about this movie. It's similar to what he said about The Force Awakens via Tony Gilroy, when Tony Gilroy said that there's nothing really new here, that it's just a rehash of A New Hope, but he did love Rogue One. And that's usually how George Lucas, by the way, talks to the audience or talks to the fans. It's always through somebody, right? It's always through another creator, either if it's J.J. Abrams or Daisy Ridley or, in this case, Steven Spielberg, or at one point Tony Gilroy. He rarely really kind of comes out and about on stage talking to the fans directly. It's always through somebody else. And I don't know if that's because he might be shy or something. I don't know. Who knows? But he usually likes to have that message put out there through people. Now, the other thing is this, alright, continuing on, is that Spielberg goes on to elaborate. We made some decisions right off the bat with this one in hopes it would garner interest with the community, but George had so many different opinions on this one with us that made making this film a bit harsh at times, but we feel we created a valuable product that many will enjoy come June 30th, and I advise people go see it on the big screen. It's unlike any other experience, everything from the de-aging tech to the twists and the turns, we all love it dearly. Now, again, Spielberg is really trying to sell this film because he is, let's face it, the executive producer, and he's going to really try to make this thing get out there and garner revenue, alright? Because, let's face it also, he knows exactly what to do, Steven Spielberg, and that is say as many good things about this movie as you can. Now, I'm actually kind of surprised that he would say this about George, but we gotta remember that he's great friends with George, so you can't betray him that much to the point where you can't really hide his true thoughts or feelings about this movie. You know, it did take a while for George's real thoughts about The Force Awakens to come out, so this comes out pretty fast this time around by Steven Spielberg. I think the reasoning behind this is that even Spielberg knows specifically that this movie is just not working, and so he's kind of like letting loose and giving up a bit and just being more honest because he knows the outcome of what's coming. And so, at the end of the day, given that we're just days away from this thing hitting theaters, even the Hollywood critics, and I've mentioned this many times today, even the Hollywood critics that are usually more lenient on a movie like this have been absolutely trashing this movie, and the best reviews are usually something around the lines of, oh, it was a little bit better than the Crystal Skull film, or yeah, it's kind of fun, but it really makes no sense, or yeah, it's a thrill, but he appears very geriatric in this movie. So, again, the list goes on and on and on with Indy 5. The box office projections are getting worse day by day, and that's not looking good for Lucasfilm. It's not looking good for Disney right now. Sad but true. I never wish bad upon anybody, but they were asking for it when they were not marketing this movie correctly and really not giving the fans specifically what they want. If you guys ask me what they really should have done, they could have easily made this movie a shorty, aka short round focused film, and have perhaps maybe a CGI or deepfaked Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones popping in and out several times throughout the film as like a side character to kind of balance things out. That would have been, I think, a proper way to do things, because the opening of this film, the first 20 minutes, is all the de-aging stuff. It's a bait and switch. Once that ends, the film is a downward spiral. I can guarantee that. So anyways, guys, I would love to hear your take on this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will of course catch you guys next time.
From night to moon.